you. So, Sahuji, it's all over to you. And Sahuji needs no introduction. He is the man who's won the award for the youth
Please.
icon and man of excellence. So, everybody knows you. So, over to you, Sahuji.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much, ma'am, for the initiative and to again reminding me कि like हम लोग like we did it exactly 1 year back, and again we are here, and I still remember the 31st December when we are doing on 2021, like the everyone was in that state of mind कि क्या होगा, because what will happen if the renewals are not coming through. And I think it is 12:15, and the renewal, the notification came that it will be it is extended. Several times it has been extended, and still many of us have not received. So that reminds me. So it is ki like when Hasji said ki like we all are going through various difficulties and other thing. In this 2022, and when while going to 2023, what will be the situation? So my suggestion will be, what may be the situation we all have to sail through. So instead of though when we in the year 2022 we said ki why me, let us in 2023 let's say ki try me. So we can only say try me if we are really strengthened from within. So when I was writing this, when actually Nivedita ma'am asked me to for this session, and when I was preparing this, I was keeping in mind ki like there are many organizations who have been scrutinized by the Ministry of Home Affairs, income tax authorities, even PF authorities, charities. So the Bombay Charity Act, through them also. So based they are not able to really cope up with the situation. Many organizations. It is because ki like the topic which you have selected today, many of us have attended many such sessions, but actually when we go through, like you will know ki like at every moment how we really have to be that vigilant, whether it is the governance, whether it is the senior management, or at the field level, or it is the finance accounts and everyone, how they all can contribute really to say that word ki try me. So let's very quickly see the presentation will be the like many of us might have attended such sessions, and we all learned people sitting here, they must be knowing, but I will try to complete it exactly 1 hour, and next half an hour will I'll take as much as questions you can ask, so that many of us like me, when I'm in a session I rarely ask questions, but when other people ask I learn. So that way we can learn in this session. So this is efficient financial management and effective practice by NGOs. It is ultimately the practices adopted, put into practice by the NGOs, will ultimately can empower them to say, try me. I'll go to next. Yes. So when we say ki, like when we talk about the financial management, it mainly revolves around four things. It is planning, raising finance, controlling finance, and administering the fund available. So when we talk about planning, like how we really have thought ki what means when as an NGO, as an organization, we really have kept in mind our objective, our goal, our vision mission for which we have been registered. And that way we approach, we see where we are working, who are our beneficiaries. Based on those, we submit project proposals and everything to the funders to really like to plan exactly what we do and for what exactly we want to do. And when we start raising funds, there are a lot of compliances come in between. I'll everything which I'll share, which is totally practical experiences. Like organizations have been asked, when you are registered under education category, how you are working on environment. When you are a organization registered under not registered under cultural, how you are doing such activities. So when we really plan our activities, we really need to know where we have been registered under which category. Like income tax act defines the 7 categories: education, health, relief to poor, environment, protection of monument, archives, and yoga. If we are we in our the renewal of 12A, we all have undergone there, we have chosen under which category we are registered. But when you see your renewal certificate, the category is not being displayed, but all the data which you have entered, it is with the income tax. You can tomorrow during a scrutiny process can be asked that you registered yourself under environment, how you are working under education, how you are working under health. So this sort of thing, when we plan our finance, that point of time we have to keep in mind. When we raise the fund, whether it is a FC fund, non-FC fund, CSR fund, government fund, and other thing, like we have to keep many things in our mind. When we talk about FC funding, there are many organizations who have received the money in the State Bank of India, New Delhi main branch, but it has not been credited into their account for months together, because many organizations did not know that few of the foreign funders have been kept on the prior permission category very recently, who were giving earlier funding to the organizations, NGOs, and it was directly coming to their account through a State Bank of India. Now it has been stopped. They want the ministry wants, if you are working with such funders, even though you are a FC registered organization, for that specific funder you have to get a prior permission. So NGOs are spent already the money, but the money has not been, they have spent from their own sources in anticipation of the money coming into their account, but the money has been stopped. So we really need to know key, like when we raise our fund, how we really need to do that. When we are working with the CSR fund, we really need to know whether it is a 1 year project or a multi-year project. When you are signing your agreement with the funders, you have to be very careful. Otherwise 31st March, funder will start asking money back. The companies who have given you the money will ask the money back. It has happened. So those things we really have to be very careful when we are planning our activities and have started raising the fund. Then how, once the money has come, this is like how you have really controlled, how your internal control procedures are, how you are really spending the money. So that question can be asked not only by the funder, but by the authorities like MHA or income tax authorities. For very small petty issues, they are saying this is words used by the auditors coming from the FCRA division. They are showing that it is a misutilization of fund. So it is like you have to really very careful, and your internal control systems inbuilt in your organization has to be very strong. Like when you are really like when using that fund, how we are really administering that fund, how we are using that fund in so that even we are able to raise some money from that. So we have to be very categorically see key, like this planning, raising, controlling, and administrating, keeping in view the organization's own objective, own goal, and the vision mission statement. So when we see these 4 categories, how we can, the organizations, NGOs can be careful, much more careful, keeping in view the way, like we all know, ki, like many of us got registered under CSR1, that form under Ministry of Company Affairs. Like 1st April 2020-21 was the date when we started registering ourselves. So we are also like, we have registered ourselves to get the money from the companies under CSR. But by registering there, we have also accepted that we will also be governed by the all the Companies Act, which is applicable under Section 135 of the CSR Act. So we really need to know ki like this government maybe another 2 3 4 5 year we will also be audited by another entity like MHA income tax. There will be another entity, another source who will also be auditing, because it will be the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. So we really need to be very careful when we are really planning, raising, administering and controlling our funding. So for that, which is which can be which are the components of an effective financial management system? These are these, if you see these, so 12 heads, these are where we can be much more careful. Our books of account, our authorization system, cash and bank management system, grant management system, policies and procedures, routine auditing routines, procurement systems, allocation of common costs, fixed asset management, reporting, and ultimately, while doing all these things, our compliances. So I'll start with like the books of account. Like till last year, in the month of August, the amendment came where the income tax authorities categorically said, though it came in the union budget, but in the month of August, the notification came and they said that under Rule 17AA, they have prescribed the books of account and other documents which needs to be maintained by the organizations which are registered under section 12A or 1023C. So they have prescribed, there is a list of records, books of account which has to be maintained by an organization. They have also mentioned where the books of account has to be maintained. They have also maintained for how long period the books of account has to be maintained. So the books of account has to be maintained at the registered office of the NGO. So many organizations, though their registered office is somewhere as per the registration documents, they have their different places, their offices, or they have a coordination office or administrative office. You can do that, but you really need to, within 7 days of, you have to intimate when you are not keeping your books of account at a place which is not your registered office. You really need to intimate the income tax authorities that where you are keeping your books of account. The books of account has to be kept preserved for 11 years from the end of the year from year to which year it pertains. So you have to keep the books of account with you for 11 years. So you really need to manage, find a place how you can maintain. Many people say ki like you can keep it electronically, means you scan it and everything you keep it. But it has happened when the MHA auditors have come, they have specifically asked for the hard copies of the register, whether it is a fixed asset register, it is a cash book, ledger, or anything, it has to be hard copy. So we really have to have that wisdom ki how we can really manage our books of account. The documents which you maintain at your project locations, that also needs to be maintained and intimated, that where you are really keeping your books of accounts related to your projects. When you say talk about books of account, when I started my career, I used to audit, manage, or do accounting in the manual set of books. Like we used to write in cash book, ledger, and other thing. But nowadays, everything electronic, and it is either in a software, either it is a customized software, or you have bought a Tally or any software from the market. But it has to be a licensed accounting software. So what happens ki many times when you are use, many organizations also use pirated softwares, which is never advisable, because you are not only violating, you are also violating the Information Technology Act by using a pirated software. And many times if there is some difficulty, or there is some data loss or anything, you cannot go back to the vendor saying ki please retrieve the data for me. So you have to maintain a licensed version of a accounting software. the books of account to maintain, you have to maintain separate books of account for FC and non-FC funds. So again, there is a deliberation there. Like every people argue key, like whether it is a cost center and any other thing, how we are managing in the tally and everything. But it has to be a two separate trial balances. You can, if you really generate from the software that for FC and non-FC funds, the vouchers numbers, like yesterday I was in one of the organizations, like questions will take only after I complete. Please write down your questions and we can only take the questions once I complete. So, so the vouchers has to be serially numbered, and preferably it has to be auto generated from the software itself. When I talk about books of account, you must have a chart of account of your organization as a whole. Like when you report to the income tax authorities through the ITR 7, they have a specific head of accounts where you have to report. There are like the activities you are undertaking. When you say you are a charitable organization, you have to be a charitable organization under section 2 bracket 15 of the Income Tax Act, where only these 7 heads are categorized, where charity means this, only these 7 heads, under these 7 heads only you can work. So means all your activities should converge to those 7 activities. Means your financial statement should say where you are working, under which category of charity you are working, whether you are a education, health, relief to poor, protection of monument, archives, environment, or yoga, or the other category, advancement of any other category of public utility nature. So you really need to categorize your activities under those 7 heads. Means you must have a chart of accounts. The financial system, the accounting software you are using, it should be such that it should generate such statements which you need to submit your funder. You need to submit your statutory authorities like FCRA, income tax. When I talk about FCRA, Rule 5, administrative expenses, as defined under the Rule 5 of FCRA. So when you prepare your, when you punch the data into the software, your software should able to segregate your expenditure incurred on a traveling expenses, if it is incurred towards the for the travel of the board member, whether it is for a program or a not for a program, it has to be booked under administration as per Rule 5 of FCRA. But if it is for a project coordinator availing that travel, then the money has to, the booking has to be under the administrative head, under the program head. So the software itself, when you punch a entry of salary in the at the month end, it should segregate ki like what amount should be booked under program and what should be under administration. So when the chart of accounts, the system, the categories you have created, it should be able to generate. Otherwise the accountant like me will, like it will come in the 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock in the morning and will go in the 10 or 10:30 in the evening, or will during finalization, during the audit, will remain in the office. So this is like how we can smartly use that software to generate such data from that financial system, so that we can periodically even submit to our funders. The system should be like that ki like it has a capacity, that software has a capacity, it can store your data for a longer period. Like when I talked about 11 years, like means the tally, the software, though you have the hard copy, the soft copy should be there in the software. Means it should have that capacity to store your data for a longer period, and whenever required you can retrieve that data. So you have to choose such a software which can be user friendly and can give also all these facilities. Then the next system, the second effective practice is authorization system. It also comes under like your one of the internal control procedures what is existing in your organization. How we have really segregated segregated the duties, let's say the financial duties, like authorizing, preparing, and approving any financial transaction. Many organization you will go, if it is a smaller organization, even mediocre organization, there may not be more people involved in such financial transactions, and one person may be taking all the decisions, preparing the voucher, approving the voucher, even making the payment. So though this organization, there is no hanky panky and everything is systematic and everything is good, but if any outsider comes to your organization, suppose for a due diligence on behalf of a funder, or even some outside auditors are coming, they will have in mind key there is no transparency in the organization. Like if one person is doing all the activities, so it is always advisable such activities has to be segregated. There has to be, like every organization, there is a hierarchy, there is a organogram where there is a authority flow, like who can authorize what volume of transaction and everything. So the level of authorization need to be clearly established in the organization. When we punch the, like when there should when you punch the expenses related to any program activity, it is just not ki any head or wherever the budget is available you have to punch it. You really need to categorize under a particular budget code where this expenditure has to be booked. Otherwise there will be the budget management process will not be, as you won't be able to manage the budget in case of an organization. When the so you are managing with many funders, like the nature of, because your objective, your goal, your vision, mission are same, the nature, the objective of the project may be same. Maybe you are implementing the projects at different places for different beneficiaries, but the nature of the expenses will remain same mostly. So when you get a bill and you are attaching it to a particular funder, it needs to be stamped as paid and cancelled. And if it is it is much more advisable, like you need to put the deface the voucher, deface the bill with the name of the funder in that on the voucher, so that this voucher mistakenly also, without our knowledge also, it is not used for, or it is not booked under any other project. So these things we really need to be very careful, and these are very good internal control practices. Then comes the cash and bank management, how you can really have a strong, very effective internal control procedure. There should always be a dual authorization system. As I said in the earlier slide, like many organizations, the authorization, approval, maker, checker, everyone is same, the same person doing. It should not, it is not really not a good practice. It is not a good norm, or it is not a good trend to show from that organization. So there must be a dual level authorization system. In case of internet banking, the maker and approver concept has to be there. Like most of us have started using this, like someone will initiate the banking transaction, the other person will get an OTP, that OTP is shared with the first person, then the payment is made. But what has happened ki very recently, like we did many evaluations for one of the CSR funder, like it is seen ki, like suppose if it is a section 8 company, there are only 2 directors, and those 2 directors are authorized for all those banking transactions, and one person is the CEO of this organization, the other person doesn't take much interest in the company or activities, he's only comes for the board meetings and everything. So the other director, he's the CEO and he's also bank signatory, though both of them are signatory. All the payments are made online. So you can say everything is banking transaction. but the person initiating the transaction is also getting the OTP and making the payment, and he's the person who is approving the payment. So it becomes key, like it is this one person organization, like he's initiating, approving and making the payment. So those things we really need to be very careful, which is exactly I have said, key segregation of duties, key like how much, who should be doing what. Limits for cash payments, like we all know ki, like whether it is FCRA or income tax, they have categorically mentioned there is like there is a limit of cash expenses, like you cannot spend beyond 10,000 of rupee in a cash in a particular day. So we'll discuss that later. So I'll miss like how it will impact our taxation when we calculate and we'll file our ITR. I'll elaborate on that. Monthly reconciliation of bank and daily cash balances, like it has happened ki, like the MHO auditors when they have come, they have asked ki why it is not a practice of taking daily cash balances duly signed by the authorized signatories. So it is pure our practical difficulties which I have faced very recently in past 2 years. I just want to share ki, like whether we have a only one bank account or many bank account, the bank reconciliation on a monthly basis is a must. And the hard copies, though we prepare it in Tally, but the print you need to really need to take and keep it handy in a file, in your bank file. Every month that has to be duly sealed, signed and kept in the file. Daily cash balance, even from the cash book, from the Tally, you can take the balance of the daily cash expenditures, cash balances, and whether it is in a weekly basis or monthly basis, that needs to also be filed for future references. When you receive the fund and utilize the fund, for that you have to have some guidelines. So your organization must have unique policies for, like the rules, regulations, everything has to be devised, has to be told through those through those policies to the employees, even the board members who are associated with the day-to-day activities, that these are our Gita, Bible, Quran, everything. So what is written there we have to obey, because when a funder comes, they ask for you for the due diligence or anything before they give you the funding. They ask for your policies. Even the auditors, they ask, even the auditors who come from various authorities, they also ask your policies, your stipend policies. Why you are giving 15,000 rupee in Uttarakhand, why you are giving 12,000 rupee in UP? These questions were asked. So you really need to have a backup thing to justify why this has been made in a particular year. So your policies, which is not static, the policies gets amended, keeping in view the changes which happen in under various acts or governance rules and other things. So policies gets changed, but your organization's policies may not match the next organization policies. Your activities are unique, your location is unique, so your policies has to be unique. Many times what we do, like we get a soft copy, we change it in our we change our name and other thing, and we keep it as our organization policy, which may not be. Policies has to be put into practice. It is just not a booklet which is kept, which can be shown to others when someone asks. It is a policy which is written. What is written there, we have to put it into practice on our day-to-day activities. So whether it is a financial policy, procurement policy, HR policy, any sort of thing, it really need to put into practice. So it has to be unique for your organization. And these policies need to be approved in a board meeting. It cannot be a policy if it has not been approved in a board meeting and put and mentioned in the resolution of that board meeting. So many times we just have policies, But if I see the want to check the reference of it in any resolution of the board meeting, it was not there. It has happened with many organizations. So this policy and procedures has to be unique. It has to be, it may be very 3 page policy, 4 page policy. It need not be 80 pages, 100 pages policies. It has to be very crispy, which can be used, which can be put into practice on a day-to-day activities. When I talk about the next, the grant monitoring and donor reporting, so there has to be like your organization, your accounting system, your financial management system has to be such that it should generate the periodic donor wise finance reports. Like 2000 1st May 2011, MHA allowed opening of utilization accounts. Means you can have more than one FC bank accounts, means FC utilization accounts, means you will receive all the funds in a particular bank account, which has now become the State Bank main branch in New Delhi. And you can have different utilization accounts for different funders. It is for FCRA. I'm just giving you the hypothetical example. So it has become little bit easy for us to report. Like the moment we receive the fund into State Bank account, we transfer it to the other utilization accounts, and it has become very easy, whether it is Misery Bread for the World, KNH, or any funder. So, but your accounting system, your financial management system should be like that. It should generate periodic donor wise reports, so that you can also as an organization monthly compare your budget and everything, and accordingly you can report to the funder. Like as I said, like you have to segregate all the funders activities through their bills and vouchers by defacing the bills with the name of the funder. When we receive a grant, when we signed a grant, like, see, I have seen many grant agreements have been signed both by the NGO and the funder. But you really review the grant agreements, like one clause, force majeure clause. None of us, many of us, I'll not say none of us, many of us has not really given a thought about this force majeure clause. When I was reading this clause 12 years back, I was feeling, what is this? Why this clause is there? But when COVID happened, like many organizations faced lot of problem. Like the funder insisted, why this activity has not been done? Why the money is still lying in your bank? So nobody. So the uniqueness of, or the importance of the force majeure clause was much more during these last 2 years. It has helped many organizations to really comply with the agreements with the funder. There are many international agencies, when they have signed the agreement with the NGOs, if you go through, they are asking you have to comply with so many acts, and we have signed the agreement. And in that agreement, there is a clause that if you don't abide by or do not comply with any of the clauses written here, then the funding agency has a right to for the arbitration, for the refund of the money and other thing. Many clauses are there. But if you really read the agreement, there are many clauses where it is written you have to have this policy, that policy, X policy, Y policy, which the NGO doesn't have. So that means, like, it is like we really need to thoroughly read the agreement before we enter into an agreement, put our signature in that grant agreement. So we have to really abide by, we have to really understand the grant agreement and comply with the terms and conditions. Many times it has happened, like the project is closed, suddenly after 3 years, the funder is sending a letter to the organization that I have given you 2 vehicles, and in the grant agreement it was mentioned that after the project is over, this vehicles has to be returned back without knowing that the FCRA Act is changed and subgranting is not permissible, and this organization is now, the funder is asking the organizations to transfer the vehicles to some other organizations. So many times it has happened ki suppose if it is a 6-year project and after 3 years the project gets over, again the new project starts. So the funder is in mind the assets which you created during the first 3 years, it will be used in the next project. The closing balances which you had, it will again go taken as the opening balance of the next project period. Or if you have a negative, means in the first project, first 3 years, means you have spent more than the budgeted amount, then you are in anticipation that this negative money or the excess utilization money will be adjusted in the next 3-year period. You have done all your activities and other thing, and suddenly the funder says ki, no, I am not going to give you this money, this 3 year is totally separate. So it is always, whenever there is a closure of a project, whether it's a continuous project or for a periodic project, you really need to submit the utilization certificate or financial utilization certificate, all the activity reports, and get a closure grant agreement signed by the funder. Tomorrow, if there is a change in the board of the funder, someone should not come and ask you ki you owe me this money. My books is saying this much of money, your book is saying this much of money, but because my book is saying this much of money, you have to refund me this money. So there has to be, whenever there is a closure agreement, you have to have a closure certificate duly acknowledged by the funder. Budget processes, like we all are very clear on this, but many organizations do not prepare an annual budget of the organization as a whole. If you ask the budget, what is the process, budget process or budget policies in the organization, it is always the budget sanctioned by the funder. The funder's budget becomes our budget, which really cannot be. There will be some core expenses which is actually not made or not paid by the funder. So if we really make an annual budget, then we segregate it into project wise operational budget, then we'll be able to know like where how we can really allocate our core expenses. Otherwise, whatever the general fund you have, you will really eating into those general funds your money. So tomorrow, if we really want to have a you will sustain through the project period, but if you really want to go beyond the project period, you will have no money, because you have already used your general fund, or if you have a corpus fund or anything, for the projects itself, to managing the projects. So we really have to a annual budget as an organization, and the detailed budget sheet for all finance as program, everything, the detailed budget sheet has to be there. So you can really match which activity, how much of money. Many times it has happened, like we have submitted a budget to some funder that with this money, we will be conducting 10 programs. And what we actually did, we did 8 programs and exhausted all the money. Then the funder gets very angry, says ki like you are not very efficiently, or you are not able to manage your money and everything, and there is excess expenditure. So these two activities, workshops, you have to do it from your own pocket. Many times it has happened the other way around, like in that 10 workshop money, we could conduct 12 workshops. So when we submit the next budget, the funder will say you have excess budgeted the workshops. So we have to be very careful in those situations, like how we are really planning our budget. So the regular and these budget deviations, like there has to be every periodic reconciliation of actual versus budget versus actual, and the reason why something is less or something is excess. Many funders allow 10%, 9%, 5% variations, but we really need to know why these variations. The variations may be allowed by the funder, but what is the wrong? Because we anticipated some amount will be spent for this activity, but why the excess? Where the money is going excess, whether it is in the field, in the finance, more anywhere, how the program. So all those things we really need to know, and we can only know if we make some periodic budget deviations, which all you know, and you are all champions and experts in budget processing. While doing our activities, there will be many like will be, whether it is a service or it is a good, there will be procuring these items. So when you procure these items, you have to be much more careful. Like one organization was asked, he like you have paid. I'm talking about when the initially this MHA audit started, some 16, 17, 17, 18, 18, 19, these years they did the the audits. So they said ki like you have paid service tax on a particular activity which was not actually chargeable. So means this organization, the NGO which has paid for a particular activity to a service provider who gave them a bill including service tax, and that one time GST was not there, that was service tax. So they have paid service tax. So this organization, this MHA people say ki like this service tax component is a misutilization of money. So they have recommended ki, they said ki we will recommend to the MHA ki this few lakhs of rupees which you have paid as service tax is a misutilization of money. So when we procure the item, when there is a like you must be having procurement policy, procurement committee, everyone will be there, and there will be a proper procedure. But the procurement committee or the person when initiating the request for quotation, RFQ, they should very categorically know to whom they are applying, and the indirect tax components and other thing, whether this person is eligible to get those indirect tax components from the organizations. So the person himself, the indenter, the person starting the indent itself, then the person preparing the RFQ, then the quotation, purchase order, GRN, everything has to be linked. Why I say ki like when you are going for a quotation of a pulse meter, you can get at 600 rupee and 6,000 rupee also. So you have to very specific when you write in your request for quotation that you want a particular brand. So you have to mention that. Otherwise, you will be getting quotations from three parties, which will be of diversified brands. One can be very cheaper, but of less quality. So always lower amount is also the L1 vendor is always not preferable. So the RFQ should mention ki how much quantity you are going to buy, what is the brand you are going to buy, where the delivery has to be made. So the RFQ request for quotation must mention this with a last date of submitting the quotation. It is not ki like you got two quotations by 7th of December which you had fixed and you are not getting anything, then you go to the market. By the time you know these two quotations and you get a quotation from somewhere which is also less than these two quotations, these are not very good practices. So this when you have obtained the quotation, then you are issuing a purchase order. The purchase order, what you have really asked for in the purchase order, the person receiving the good must have a copy of that. Otherwise, there were situations, orders were issued for laptops, the receipt was desktops in the field. So the purchase orders and the GRN, goods receipt note or delivery note, should be the mirror image of each other. So whatever you have ordered, that the other person has received the same. And then once received the thing, how they are entering into the stock register. When the stock register, it has been entered properly, how this is being utilized in the field. What is the process of issue? What is the process of distribution? Whether there is a photo from the Google location, date, time, everything coming on that. So these are few things. Like there are many organizations who are still working with foreign fund, but giving such assets from the for money they have created assets from the foreign fund. Still, it is being given to the other organizations for use. So you cannot say ki this is a transfer of asset. It is a violation of FCRA post 20th September 2020. But there are situations where funders are saying ki we'll give you the asset, but this asset will be used by the other organization working in a particular area where they means they are efficient and they have the technical capacity to work, but the fund will come to X organization. So in that case, whether you have really made that custodial agreement, like you are the owner of the asset, but the asset is held in the premises of the other organization. So these are few practical things which I want to really share, so that you can also think on all this and you can really work on this. There is the very like it is every funder, or on behalf of the funder, when we go for the audits, due diligence and other thing, we always definitely see what is the policy adopted by the organization for the allocation and apportion of common costs. So the common costs will be like the thing, it will be common cost will be like, but like the core costs which the organization is definitely going to incur, whether it is rent, electricity, audit expense, annual audit expenses, or secretary's salary, CEO salary, that sort of thing. Means that person is not located to a particular project, but that person is overviewing everything. So what is the policy? How the rent paid by the organization is apportioned to different projects. So there you have to have a policy. It just, you cannot say because this funder has a big budget, I'll most part of it will go to that. None of the funder will accept that. And before you enter into an agreement, this policy should be explained to the funder, so that tomorrow when their auditor come or their representative come, they should not say ki this projector, though owned by XYZ organization, when they have used the projector and hall of this organization for this purpose, they have charged money to this. Why they are charging 2000 rupee for the project to XYZ project, why 3000 rupee to the other projects? So this has to be really shared with the funder before you enter into an agreement, and there has to be a clarity how you are really going to charge this common cost, whether it can be allocated or apportioned between all the projects. The accounting system, the software you have, or the way you maintain your account, it should be generate periodic reports to be reviewed by the management, the MIS system. So that organization has to be a system so that the management knows today's time there is a new concept, though not new. Many foreign countries, they have already started long back. This is GRC. This is governance, risk and compliance. So even the whether how much the governing board, your executive body is taking interest in your activities, how without, because if they are not interfering, what is the risk? If they are interfering, what is the risk? So those things, the organization have a policy, should also be there. So this accounting system has to, that financial reporting has to be also there, like how periodically this financial reporting reports can come to the management and they can also take a decision. Like when you enter into an agreement, as I said earlier, there has to be a compliance calendar, like what needs to be done when you execute a project, whether reporting to a funder, reporting to the various authorities. So all those things, we really need to have a compliance calendar so that you do not miss anything. If you forget to get a bill, you can ask the same from the vendor maybe 1 month after. But if you have missed filing your FC return by 31st of December, your income tax return by 30th of September, your audit report by particular date, then everything gone. So the compliance is very crucial and compliance is a must. So there is no there has to be a compliance calendar which you really need to comply with. The financial reports, there is a proper time, like as I said, income tax authorities, FCRA, your Bombay Charity Act, so all those things, TDS returns, so all those, there is a specific timing. So there has to be a calendar so that everything is done at a proper time. Like internal control on fixed assets, like again this MHA asking for last 6 year assets, maybe that mobile phone, that laptop, that printer which you bought, it is not there in your custody because it got damaged, or it is of no longer used, and you sold it or you disposed it. So but for that you have to have a policy which is duly approved by your board, and based on that you have sold that asset. So tomorrow you can tell that auditor, he like, because this asset was no longer used, we have sold, but who certified that this asset is of no longer use? So there has to be a periodic physical verification. The fixed asset register has to be maintained. The fixed asset register must show the location and condition of the asset. When the physical verification was conducted, who conducted the physical verification? Was there a committee comprising of technical people when they verified your computers? So all those things, like many a times, like organizations have land, building, everything in their balance sheet. Means the land and building is owned by the organization, and many a times the asset value goes up. But we have written a value which when we constructed the organization, or this building 30 years back, and when the auditors sign the financial statements along with your board, they write true and fair. True means the asset is in existence, but it is the value is not fair. So the valuation of the asset has to be made. Suppose tomorrow you have a, during physical verification, you found there are 10 computers in your books, but out of that 7 are not working, you are just kept like this. So as an auditor, for me the value is 0, but just to continue in your books you have to keep it in, at a, you can, as per your policy, you can say ki the value is at 1 rupee so that you can continue the assets in your books. But you have to really, how you can take the insurance cover on those assets and other thing, and the disposal, procurement policy, disposal policy, numbering of the asset, it has to be a must in case of an organization. If we really want to say in 2023 that try me, there has to be like audits has to be like, it is the auditor has to be appointed in the AGM. The his or her means the audit or firm's remuneration has to be fixed. in the that AGM, and that has to be mentioned in the AGM minutes. The auditor has to submit the management report along with the financial statements when he submit to the board. The audit financial statements has to be adopted in a board meeting in the AGM before you file your income tax return. It has happened many times. The returns has been filed, but the meeting has happened after that. So for all those things, we really have to be very careful, and we like the how you can effectively use your auditors, like giving you all the updates through that management reports and everything, so that the governing board or the executive board, they can take a proper decision for the future. And the end is like, though we are not really focusing in this session compliances, but it is the most important thing if we really want to survive. Because 2019, the many of us, you might not be knowing, 2019 an amendment came under the Income Tax Act, and the Chief Commissioner of Income Tax has given wide authority. If they found ki like the NGO registered under section 12A or 1023C have non-complied with any act applicable to the organization, and there is a list of acts which is very few, there may be any act which is applicable to you and you have not complied with the act, the income tax authority has the power to suspend your 12A registration. So when 12A registration is gone, whether it is FCRA or anything, whatever fund you get, it will be taxed as a company or anything, you have to pay 30% tax. So you have to be very careful that you know all these acts and you are complying with all the acts. We cannot say ki like because the funder is not giving us money, we cannot give EPF, we cannot enroll under ESI. But when we see ki like we have 100 employees, we have more than 10 employees, we are not registered under ESI. We are we are more than 20 employees, we are not registered under EPF. We are in a particular state like Maharashtra and we are not complying with professional tax or anything. So we just cannot say ki funder is not giving, that's why we cannot comply with this. We are an organization, we are registered as under section 12A with the Income Tax Act, and we have to comply. Funder will not be liable for that. So when you prepare your project proposal, when you prepare a financial budget, you have to inbuilt all these costs in that salary head. If you are fixing a salary of X amount for a particular position, you have to ensure like EPF, ESI, the social security measures, and even gratuity. If that person has continued 5 years with your organization, he or she is eligible for gratuity. So how you are really generating this money when you are working with the funder? You have to be very careful when we plan your project. There are few updates like you might be knowing ki like now on the reimbursement, even if you are appointed a consultant and you are making him or the company any payment, and if the reimbursement is exceeding more than 20,000 in a year, then you have to deduct tax at 10% on the whole reimbursement. Suppose you have appointed one audit firm for a particular work, and they are also doing your other audits, your branch offices and other thing. There is a traveling, there is a hotel expenses. If this is exceeding 20,000 rupee in a year, you have to also deduct TDS on that reimbursement. Any expenditures on the new budget, last year budget, it categorically said when you submit your financials to the income tax authorities, when you compute your tax, the financials has to be on cash basis, means expenditures has to be calculated on cash basis. Means as a 12A organization, we have to spend 85% of our total receipt in the year of receipt to means maintain our 12A status. But that 85% should be the amount spent. It has to be the payment, not expenditure. Means there cannot be any provision inside that 85%. So you can prepare your, as per your organization policy and everything, you can prepare your books of account on cash basis, mercantile accrual basis, or anything. But when you report to the income tax authority, when you prepare your computation statement, it has to be cash basis. Another section was inserted 139A5C. So when there is a invoice exceeding value of 2 lakh of rupee. So in that invoice, if you are getting an invoice from the any vendor which is more than 2 lakh of rupee, then the PAN number of the vendor and the PAN number of your organization has to be mentioned by the vendor in the invoice. Many a times we argue ki that person is submitting the GST number, and in that GST number, PAN number of the vendor is there. This is a wrong argument. The act says the PAN number has to be specifically mentioned. So both our NGO's number and the vendor's PAN number has to be mentioned in that invoice. Many a times we become very dependent on our auditors, and auditors manages our income tax site, FCRA site, TDS site, EPF site. Nowadays, every alternate day, the income tax is sending notices to the organization. Those who have renewed their 12A or have applied phrase, all are receiving notices from income tax authorities. And it is a very simple process, like it is written here. You can go click, you can check what notice the income tax authorities are sent. Suppose this, everything is clean, suddenly they will just send you a red colored letter saying your assessment is done and TDS adjusted or tax is due. They will very happily say the tax is due. That means the TDS which you are supposed to get refund from the income tax authorities, they will deduct from that amount. There are many organizations who got a notice saying like the ITR 7 which you have reported foreign currency at 2 places of 2 different value. Based on that, they included the excess income and they assessed you again, and they asked for a tax demand. But it is a very simple process. You have to just file a revised return under section 154, and the thing will be removed from the website of the income tax. But what happens is, whenever we get a notice in our email, we just get panic and you start calling our auditor that we have got a notice, they are demanding so much of thing and other thing. So we really need not have to panic, and we will not be panic if we are also get accustomed with the income tax sites or FCRA sites. So please do not be more dependent on the auditors. You can also check your status and other thing. I will take another 5 minutes to quickly go through, and we can then take the question answer. So cash payments, as I have already said, like beyond 10,000 rupee, if you are spending anything, then it will be very difficult. So it is means like this 10,000 rupee, if you are spending more than that, then this will be disallowed and a tax will be levied by the income tax authorities. So before you file the income tax return ITR 7, please check if you have spent somewhere more than 10,000 rupee. That expenses will be disallowed under 85%, and you have to pay tax before you file your income tax return. So cash payments are disallowed beyond 10,000 rupee. So don't entertain cash payments in your organization. There will be like these are few instances, like when you receive the invoices, this the purpose of the expenditure will be missing. Invoices may not be in the name of the organization. There will be no date mentioned in the invoices. Complete breakup of the cost. If you are buying something, it may be missing. There will be many handmade bills, invoices. So if you are getting in an interior area, you are working or getting handmade meals, please ensure the name, contact details of the person from whom you are buying is there, so that tomorrow if there is a field verification, that can be checked. Many times vendors provide GST bills with a but the GST number will not be mentioned in the invoice, but you will be paying that 6%, 18%, whatever it may be, you will be paying to the vendor without knowing that vendor is not itself registered under GST, and you are an NGO, you are not a company. If you would have a company or something, you would have taken an input and other thing, then that catch would have been there. Otherwise, one person will be taking in the name of GST 18% on every invoice from you. Actually, he or she might not be depositing with the authority. So you have to be very careful on that. When we submit travel claims, it has been seen key like the purpose of is missing, tour report is missing in that invoice, and the calculation of TADA in that is not matching with the organizational policy. So all those things has to be there to ensure ki like the travel claim is appropriately claimed. Like we have already discussed the procurement processes ki like uh, when a procurement committee, which I missed, I just want to say ki when the procurement committee is sitting, they have to give a declaration that there is no conflict of interest in that purchase. There may be some situations ki like one person in the procurement committee might be one L1 vendor is there, who may be a relative of this person sitting in the procurement committee. That person should not attend that meeting. There must be a second procurement committee meeting where this person should not be a part of that procurement, so that such a decision taken which should be better for the organization. So as I said, ki like the proper procedure has to be followed as per the procurement policy of the organization. Like many a times the resource persons we select as an NGO, but when it is also a procedure. So how you selected that person? So the person's CV profile of the consultant has to be there. Their agreement has to be there with that person, and that person should submit an invoice after submitting his work, so that the payment can be made. There may be very small, like resource person or a medical person you have invited for a particular topic or anything. So you have given a small honorarium. So a small format should be developed by the organization, which that resource person should sign when you pay him 1,000 or 2,000 rupee, so that it is for future reference ki actually this has been made. And the voucher file also contain the people who gathered there, the participant list, and the photographs from the Google location, so that in a future reference it can be seen ki like it was conducted on that particular date. There are incomplete voucher packages, like there are many things meeting. Suppose in the voucher there are particular things need to be attached. Any for a training or workshop related, as I said, the participants list, the photographs, the person participant list has to be certified by the project coordinator or the head of the organization who attended that meeting, or even the resource person who is there. So they can at least authorize one third party verification has to be there to ensure ki like suppose so many lunch boxes were used, or so much of samosas were used, so that can be correlated with the bill with the participant list. So the voucher has to have all those documents so that it can be correlated. Rent agreements, it has happened many times. The rent agreements of the organization are made on stamp papers, but please ensure if any rent agreement is exceeding 11 months, it has to be mandatorily registered. It cannot be on a stamp paper saying ki because it's 11 months, it's just a stamp paper on you make and you keep it for reference. It will have no value if it is challenged in a court. If it is a rent agreement for 11 months or less, it can be on a stamp paper, but it has to be notarized. Many a times besides rent, we also pay electricity charges and any other water charges or incidental charges to the landlord. So for that, that person may not give a bill. So there has to be something mentioned in the agreement itself, and a note should be prepared and signed by the landlord to ensure that this money was paid to that person, because that will not be fixed every month. It will vary. So tomorrow, if you want to check, someone want to verify, so those documents are there. So thank you so much. I think I thought I'll share all these things with you, and now it is over to all of you. Anything anyone wants to ask, I'll try my best to answer.
Yeah.
So as Hasji started, why 2021 22 was why me, let's make 2023 onwards try me. Whatever any authority, any challenges we face, let us face it boldly, because we have done our homework, because we know everything, all the statute and everything, so that we can comply with, and we can have the proper books of account as defined under the Income Tax Act. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sahuji, for kind of giving us this brush up and that abridged version. It was so succinct, and it is always a pleasure to have you at the end of the month to cajole ourselves to kind of pull up our socks for the future. So we have two questions already. Hardeep, yours is first and Nisreen second, and then I would request everybody to whosoever wants to kind of either has a question or wants to share a comment, if you could please raise your hand, and one by one we will be inviting you over. Yeah. So Hardeep, if you can unmute yourself and ask your question in case it hasn't been addressed already.
Now, sir, I have only two questions as of now. Number one is, if you have an incidental business income, so we need to create a separate set of books. So can while we are submitting to the income tax authorities, like अगर मैं GST charge कर रहा हूँ, तो उस case में I need to maintain separate set of books in case of under the non-FC books.
So, see, incidental business activity, though 2008, no, the charity was redefined, and education, health, and relief to poor. If you are working under these three heads, and there are you are gaining some business incidental business income, so you need not have to worry. आप कितना भी कर सकते हैं, whatever you want to earn, you can earn. But at that point of time, till they started adding environment, protection of monument archives, yoga, and everything, and it means like they divided the NGO sector into two categories. If you are into these 5 categories, no problem, you can earn anything. But if you are into other category, the 7th category, which is general public utility, right, advancement of any other object of general public utility, मैं वो बोलता हूं कि कितने लोग हम लोगों को काली बकरी मार के खा जाते हैं, किसी को कोई कुछ नहीं बोलता है, बट एक पर्सन ने मारा कि नहीं मारा मैं भी नहीं जानता हूं, बट उसकी शादी नहीं हो पा रहा है, ही स्टिल अनमैरिड. वो किसी ने बोला है
कि अगर मेरा जनरल पब्लिक यूटिलिटी में है तब मेरे को मैंडेट है, अदरवाइज अगर एनवायरनमेंट पे है, एनवायरनमेंट, ओनली 3: एजुकेशन,
हेल्थ, relief
Health.
to poor,
Okay.
protection of monument archives, procurement, protection of environment, and 2014 में योगा ऐड हुआ. So आप suppose ये 7 काम कर रहे हैं, and if you are earning any incidental business activity, you need not have to worry. You can do whatever you want, but in the last budget, it made it mandatory. You have to prepare, keep separate books of account for your business activities. So if someone is giving you money after deducting tax, so please maintain separate books of account for all these activities.
Okay, sir. Okay. And my one more question that is belong to in case of we are getting funds from the donor under the FCRA and the cost something around 50 to 60 lakh, and we install that assets on ground and that using by the some poor farmers. So in that sense, to have a consolidated or you can say the collaborative agreement with the on ground FPC or SHG, something like that. तो वो बताइए sir उसमें. That is only two
Sir,
questions
the
I have.
asset has to be in your books.
Yes,
The
in my
asset you
books.
cannot transfer. The asset has to be in your books.
Mhm.
There can be a custodial agreement so that they manage, maintain. Suppose there is any enormous like fire, theft, or any such of threat is there, so they will take care of that. They can use your asset because the objective of the project is for them. They are your
Okay.
beneficiaries, and the project has been sanctioned by the foreign funder based on that.
And what about
So
the
you can
AMC in case of that for
everything, it has to be paid by you.
okay, paid by us. And down the line after the 3 or 4 years might be the WDV of that assets, it might be a little bit amount. So that in that situation that then we can transfer to a group of farmers or no?
You cannot, asset cannot be transferred.
Transfer.
It can only, you have to value it. If it is as a scrap, you can
Okay.
sell it, but MHA officers, even after 8 or 9 years, they wanted to see the assets.
8, 9
The
years.
mobile phones purchased in the year 2016, they wanted to see in the year 2022.
Got it. And यहाँ तो वैल्यू सर बहुत ज्यादा है 50 से 60 लाख है तो I think so we need to more precaution.
So you have to, there you have to use your brain. There is nothing written in the act or anything I can guide you. Yes.
Thank you,
And
sir.
after
Thank you so much, sir.
September 2020, और कुछ भी नहीं है that I can guide you. So you have to take your decision. Yes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Next.
Sahoji, before that, just one request to all our participants, though we would want to have as many questions, you can ask as many questions, but in the interest of time, I will request you to please restrict your questions to 2. And then if time permits and if Sahoji has the time, then we will possibly go for further questions. But आप please अपने questions दो तक restrict करिएगा. और इससे साहू जी राजेश जी के पास जाने से पहले एक क्वेश्चन निसरीन का है जो काफी पहले से था, वो 10,000 का जो आपने एक बताया था जो लिमिट है पर डे का स्पेंड का. What she is wanting to ask is whether it's a single transaction or a cumulative of an organization. So if you can answer that.
Cumulative offer 10,000 per day.
So I hope Nisreen that
Thank you.
addresses.
Yeah. Thank you.
Biswajit will come back to you because आपसे पहले राजेश हैं, अभिराम हैं, उसके बाद आपसे Biswajit will put you through. So Rajesh ji, please over to you for your question.
अभिराम जी को कोई आंसर नहीं देंगे, वो डेली मुझे बात करते हैं, अभी यहाँ पे क्या पूछेंगे?
ठीक है, तो राजेश जी.
जी सर, जी राजेश जी.
Yes, good evening sir. मैं एग्जूट से हूँ राजेश. सर मेरा सर I would like to know the chart of account, content of charts of accounts.
Sir, it will depend, it will vary from organization to organization. It is not fixed, but if you see your income tax ITR 7, there are specific heads where you have to report. Like if I see many balance sheet or income expenditure accounts, in the income expenditure account, it will be written bread for the world, Miserior, WHH. These are not your activities, they are your funder.
Okay.
So in the chart of accounts, you really need to show, you really need to like in what category, what are, when if you don't have a chart of accounts, you cannot prepare a very good budget of your organization. How
Okay.
much you have to spend on salary, on rent, on electricity, on consultancy, everything you have to mention there. So that way, if you have a proper chart of account, then from the salary you can break up miserere salary, KNH salary, WHS salary. So that way you can break. So you have to be a chart of account where the accounting heads are there. And if you really
Okay.
see that 32 page ITR, I think in the 17th or 18th page, it is specific heads they have mentioned.
Yes.
And they have mentioned specific heads as per 2-15, these heads which I am sharing many times. So it is there. So all the activities should converge to those heads. So you have to have those accounting heads for your organization.
Okay, sir. One more question, sir. Is there any prescribed format for fixed assets register?
Sir, it is there. There is definitely prescribed format is there. And in the format which you buy from a shop or anything, you will not find the location and condition of the asset, which means they will mention value, depreciation, WDV, everything. But if you can really devise a system where you also suppose if you have a laptop is, suppose if you are using a laptop, you will take it home, but it is owned by Exute. Suppose I want to verify that day particular time ki where is this laptop, but Rajesh ji is in Chakradarpur, not in Ranchi, and I am verifying the asset in Ranchi.
Yes, sir.
So in the location it will be mentioned ki means who is the, it is whose custody, with Mr. Rajesh at Chakradarpur.
Yes.
So if I am a third party coming, I can verify and I can ensure ki the fixed asset register is correct.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Thank you so much. So Abhiram ji stands next. So Sahu ji, all yours. Can we just permit him one question for today and
Yes.
the rest for the others later?
Namaste.
Namaste.
Actually, I don't have any question. I just want to one thing clarifications. I got all the total presentation. There are two things. One is the procedure, then the second is the compliances. And we are very sound of compliances because of your help and your guidance day to day disturbance to you. So only the procedural things. See, already some my friend already asked about the asset. Now the asset register, maintenance of the asset register procedurally already I have explained. So I don't have anything to ask on this questions. But in the income tax recent changes you have mentioned 143 about 10,000 per day or 2,000 cash expenses allowed.
Sir, it is always 10,000. We all confused with the do's and do nots. There is a do's and do nots in the MHA website, in the FCRA website, which is mentioned as 2,000 rupee. But this 2,000 rupee, why it is 2,000 rupee? Many people say typo error or any error, but I also do not know. But Income Tax Act says 10,000 rupee, and what is applicable to income tax is also applicable to FCRA, and there is a notification to that. It is 10,000.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Abhiram ji. Biswajit ji, if you can unmute yourself and ask question, and thereafter Gurumurthy ji.
Sir, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Okay, sir. I'm
Biswajit, हम आपको सुन नहीं पा
sir,
रहे हैं.
I have a question with regard to PA. Suppose if someone is applying to... Hello, sir, can you hear me?
आपकी वॉइस ब्रेक हो रहा है. प्लीज थोड़ा बाहर आ जाइए जहाँ पे है आप ये करके. और तब तक कोई, if anyone want to ask, they can ask. Biswajit, when you are in the network, please ask.
Gurumurthy ji is next. So maybe in the
Yeah.
interim.
Hello,
Hello,
Sahuji. I'm Chitra here from Child Fund.
Yes.
We also speak regularly. I just had two questions. One is, regarding the GST invoice that we sometimes receive from various vendors. Is it mandatory for us to check the validity of the GST registration of each and every vendor who has raised the invoice correctly? But then, the validity, is it our responsibility to validate and, check each and every GST number and see whether the vendor is actually his registration is actually valid and active? And what are the implications if we don't check it and the registration of the vendor turns out to be inactive? That's one question. And second question is, the daily, of course, there is an asset policy, but what about the daily day-to-day scrap that gets generated in, various offices, at various locations? For example, electronic waste, or, even, like your newspaper waste, or any other kind of waste that is a scrap, which is not actually in the books of accounts. What should be the treatment for those kind of scrap that gets generated? What should be the ideal policy of the organization for that? These are the two questions that I have.
Ma'am, I will answer your second question first. मैं भूल ना जाऊं. So like it is like see, ultimately it is the organization. When we buy an asset, we always see ki whether it is a L1 vendor. Like means like we are benefiting our organization through our internal control procedures and our committees and other things, so that we buy the best product with a lesser, the least. Similarly, when we dispose of something, we really need to see we get a higher rate. So so you have to have a disposal policy. So you choose the H1 vendor who provides that that money to you, and you really need to, like, if it is a FC asset, then it has to be very stringent. Like you really need to check the background of the vendor, like whether the electronics items you are disposing, it is really really a scrap and it cannot be reused. So if it is a reusable thing, then it can create an issue for you. But if it is really, when I say ki physical verification, the composition of the committee, physical verification committee, means that is a technical person who can certify, yes, this computer, this printer, this AC, this mobile can never be reused. And when you go for like the way you go for the procurement, you have to go for such a vendor who can give you the higher price. That is ultimately the benefit coming to the organization. The first question you asked, yes, it is why it is your duty. Like suppose one person who is taking the money from you as 18%, 16%, 6%, 12% from your organization for the various things, that person may not be using that money, may not be depositing that money, or that person may not be, means it has, we have seen ki like they have taken when they submitted the quotation, they have the GST registration, but when they got the order, they surrendered the GST and they got the money from you. And many a times it has happened, it is who are recurring vendors, so they have taken money from them as 18% and they have not deposited. So when like when in Bombay, one of the organization, when the MHA people raised this query saying ki the education related activities is not under service tax, and you should not have paid service tax to this organization, 12% whatever you have paid, it is a misutilization of fund. This categorically they're specified in the report. So it becomes really our duty to check, and it is a very less time you can check the status of the organization, that
Thank you,
whether it is a
Sahuji.
GST
Thank you.
compliant or not.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
Sahuji, we've already overshot the time that we had slotted for, but we've got 3 more I mean, I think we can.
Yes,
I mean,
yes,
if
yes.
we've got the time.
Nivedita, I have,
Just keep.
I
Pramila ji, just hang on for a minute before you. Mallikarjun Reddy was there. If he can ask the question, then it's you, and then we have one who's entered as admin. So just these three persons we'll accommodate today, and the rest we will take up maybe tomorrow if time permits. Then we'll possibly take that up. So what do you say? Will that be okay, Sahuji?
Yes, 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 please.
So, Mr. Reddy, if you can please unmute yourself and ask your question. Thank you. Mr. Mallikarjun Reddy, are you there? I can see your mic is unmuted. So if you could please ask your question. Yeah. Mr. Reddy, are you there? No, I don't think there's some problem with the mic, I believe. Pramila Di, you can ask your question, please.
Can I ask? Sorry.
Just one simple question. जब आपसे साहू जी नमस्ते,
नमस्ते
वो
मैम।
जो एफसी जो एसेट खरीद हुआ वो सेल होगा तो क्या होगा उसका पैसा, उसको डिस्ट्रीब्यूट कर सकते हैं कोई दूसरे ऑर्गेनाइजेशन को। दूसरा क्वेश्चन है, हमारे जो संस्था है तो 25 साल पहले कहाँ हुआ था ये भी हमको मालूम नहीं, किसी को मालूम नहीं, किसी का एड्रेस दिया गया था। तो अभी जब 11 साल के पेपर्स वहां रखेंगे, कैसे रखेंगे? अब जब हम एफसीआर को रिटर्न फाइल करने के टाइम लिखा है कि हमारे एड्रेस चेंज हुआ, तो उन्होंने बोला आपको फिर सारे अमेंडमेंट करके देना पड़ेगा। तो अमेंडमेंट के लिए हमने दिया तो 6 महीना हो गया, कुछ आंसर नहीं है। तो इस केस से जब कहाँ रखेंगे वो सब? वो पहले जो ऑफिस था ना, वो ऐसे कोई फ्रेंड का नाम पे हुआ था, लेकिन वो कभी हमारे काम नहीं आया, जो रजिस्टर्ड ऑफिस आप बोल रहे हैं।
मैम, जो रजिस्टर्ड ऑफिस आपका है, आपको उसको चेंज करना है तो पहले, बिकॉज आई थिंक यू आर फ्रॉम उड़ीसा ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, सो आपको पहले सोसाइटी।
I am from Odisha, but here I am asking for now National Alliance of Women. This is a national level organization. Our registered office in Sarita, Bihar, but we never use that office. We are always in other office, U9, that like that, 3-4 office changed. But now when we have filed in income FCRA, they said that you have to give the proper document with valid amendment. So we have filed all this amendment, what is that, records, but they are not listening.
मैम, फर्स्ट वी ऑल नीड टू नो, नो डिजिट का जो FCRA नंबर है वो क्यों स्टैंड करता है, वो क्या है? पहला 4 नंबर इट डिनोट्स स्टेट, द नेक्स्ट 2 ये दैट डिनोट्स डिस्ट्रिक्ट, then the other 3 number जो होता है, like it denotes the area where you are there. Like if you say Sarita Bihar means you are in Delhi 1. So if you change your address from Delhi 1 to Delhi 2, if there is a change in district, then your FCRA registration is means like as if it is no more there. You have to go for a fresh registration. So that is the reason ki like you have submitted this.
नहीं, मुझे लगता है साहू जी समझा नहीं पाए। सरिता जी था, लेकिन तब से दूसरे 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ऑफिस चेंज हो गया है, तो अभी तक हमको ये मालूम नहीं था। तो अभी जब ये रिन्यूअल के लिए हमने सारे फाइल किए, उसके बाद हमने ये चेंज अभी नया फिर चेंज हुआ और एक जगह को, तो इसके बाद हमने अप्लाई किया कि चेंज हुआ करके। पहले से कभी नहीं चेंज किए थे, लेकिन यही जहाँ जहाँ ऑफिस था उसी ऑफिस का एड्रेस में हमें सारे रिटर्न भरते थे।
So ma'am, I think जब भी आप whenever there is a change, पहले था कि 15 दिन के अंदर आपको इंटीमेट करना था, अभी 45 डेज हो गया है, वो सभी कुछ चीजें हैं। एंड इफ यू हैव नॉट इंटीमेटेड, बिकॉज रिन्यूअल के टाइम में वो ऑफिस वेरिफिकेशन होता है, like someone will go and verify that office and other thing. So I'll talk to you ma'am, because we'll also be coming for the audit to you. मैं आपको इसको
तो
वन ऑन वन बात करूंगा, अनलेस आई सी द पेपर्स, मैं आपको कोई ना सही आंसर नहीं दे पाऊंगा, और मैं कोई किसी को गोल मोटल आंसर नहीं देता हूँ।
हाँ ठीक 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 है।
I'll come to you when we come for the audit. आप बस बोल दीजिए दिल्ली में करना है कि उड़ीसा में करना है, accordingly I'll come, I'll explain you, don't worry.
ओडिशा में ही करना है, सारे पेपर तो ओडिशा में है, इसलिए आपको ओडिशा
ठीक
आना
है,
पड़ेगा।
उड़ीसा में आएंगे, इसी बहाने मम्मी डैडी से मिल लूंगा, मैं घर आऊंगा, डोंट वरी।
थैंक यू आ जाइए आ जाइए।
साहू जी,
Thank you.
विश्वजीत जी का पहले कनेक्शन था, शायद अभी वो रेडी हैं, तो अगर उनका क्वेश्चन हम ले
हाँ
लें।
विश्वजीत जी प्लीज पूछिए, विश्वजीत जी भी डेली फोन करते हैं, पता नहीं इनको यही पूछना होता है, पूछिए।
विश्वजीत जी प्लीज अनम्यूट योरसेल्फ एंड आस्क योर क्वेश्चन। आप म्यूट पे हैं विश्वजीत जी, आप प्लीज अपने आप को अनम्यूट कर लें।
Okay. Good afternoon, sir. Sir,
बताइए।
actually, yes, I have a question, sir, with regard to PF. If someone is appointed for a specific project for the post of anything else, wherein the salary is clearly mentioned only 18,000, but it is not articulated so far as salary bifurcation is concerned. Here is my question to you, sir. How would the PF be calculated? I mean to say, the employee and employer share will be deducted from that 18,000, or else organization has to pay it separately.
Employer share is always employer's share. It cannot be deducted from the employee's salary. So employer's contribution has to be over and above that contribution. So when you, if it is, because it is an 18,000, you are on a safer side. So if that person is under PF, then you have to really calculate ki what will be the basic, and on that employer has to pay whatever the percent, 12.5%, that whatever it may be, employer has to keep separately. You cannot say employer plus employee plus his salary is 18,000. It is wrong.
Okay.
Yes.
So that beyond of 18,000, organization has to pay it separately.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
There's somebody who's joined in as admin. If you can please introduce yourself and ask your question, please. Admin नाम से है, उन्होंने chat box में लिखा है I want to ask a question. Meantime, there is a message in chat box saying from Shishir Upadhyay saying that sir मैं इसलिए कोई question नहीं कर रहा हूँ. That's meant for Sahu ji, I believe. So
शिशिर जी भी बहुत दिनों से गुस्से में बात नहीं कर रहे हैं, इसी बहाने बात कर लेंगे। वो बहुत दिन बात किए, मैं नहीं कर पाया तो गुस्से में फोन नहीं कर रहे हैं।
So Shishir ji, if you have any questions, then Sahu ji can take it up today. That's what he promises. बीच में
No, thank you Nidhi ji, just joking. पूछ लेंगे सर से। Okay, thank you.
एडमिन नाम से ने जो लॉगिन किया था, उन्होंने चैट बॉक्स में लिखा था कि आई हैव अ क्वेश्चन। तो अगर आपका कोई क्वेश्चन है तो प्लीज अनम्यूट योरसेल्फ एंड आस्क योर क्वेश्चन प्लीज। इसके अलावा मल्लिकार्जुन जी, अगर आपका नेटवर्क अभी ठीक हो गया है तो यू कैन आस्क योर क्वेश्चन, बिकॉज आपने हाथ रेज किया था, उस टाइम बात नहीं हो पाई थी। इफ यू आर स्टिल देयर, इफ यू कैन अनम्यूट योरसेल्फ एंड आस्क क्वेश्चन। Are you there? Admin से या मल्लिकार्जुन जी? No, I don't think they're here. किसी और का कोई सवाल है? Finally, एक लास्ट क्वेश्चन हम ले सकते हैं क्योंकि हमने टाइम लिया है। Problem with the system. Can Reddy ji, can you key in your question? We will ask question from Sahu ji on your behalf. अगर आपको आप चैट बॉक्स में अपना क्वेश्चन लिख दीजिए, यू कैन पुट इन योर क्वेश्चन इन द चैट बॉक्स, वी विल बी एबल टू टेक दैट अप। Later I will call sir, it is very lengthy. Okay. So this time we're getting people who are relating to you and giving you that leeway, Sahu ji, but you'll have to promise कि जो questions आपसे पूछे जा रहे हैं, ताकि for the larger audience they are useful, do share it with us so that we can share it with our members and our other CSOs who've joined us, who may gain out of it. Urmila ji, hello.
हाँ
how are you?
नमस्ते साहू जी नमस्ते निवेदिता जी
नमस्ते
कैसे?
Sir, namaste.
नमस्ते नमस्ते।
we have one
आपका
question
मेल का तो
from,
रिप्लाई कर दिया था इस वर्कशॉप से पहले। आई
सोनू
एम
जी
रिप्लाई।
सर मेरा एक क्वेश्चन था,
हाँ,
वो सेक्शन
Yes, yes.
194 आर टीडीएस को लेके थोड़ा उसकी क्लैरिटी दीजिए। जैसे अगर मान लीजिए किसी हम स्टाफ को रिम्बर्समेंट करते हैं किसी भी तरह का ट्रैवल एक्सपेंसेस या जो कुछ भी है, तो उसकी एनुअल लिमिट वो 20,000 ही है या क्या है ये?
स्टाफ को जो भी रिएम्बर्समेंट किया जाएगा, इफ इज ए सैलरीड एम्प्लॉय, कोई टीडीएस नहीं होगा। 194 आर इज ओनली फॉर कंसल्टेंट्स। ये पहले क्लैरिटी हो जाए। और मुझे लग रहा है मैं आगे से कोई भी चीज लिखूंगा लेकिन किसी को भेजूंगा नहीं, बिकॉज आई हैव सेंड इट टू ईच वन ऑफ यू, लेकिन किसी ने पढ़ा नहीं। तो वो थोड़ा सा ये लगता है कि आप इतना मेहनत करें और वो जो दिन चेंजेस आता है द होल डे, no food, no phone calls, you just start writing so that other can read it properly and they can understand. लेकिन कोई पढ़ता नहीं है, कोई फायदा नहीं है। ये 1 घंटा हम करेंगे, हम भूल जाएंगे इसके बाद। सोनू मैं आ रहा हूँ जमशेदपुर को।
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल बिल्कुल, वेलकम सर।
थैंक यू सर,
थैंक
थैंक
यू
यू निवेदिता जी।
Thank you so much,
Thank
Urmila ji. Sahuji, I think we are way beyond our scheduled time, and thank you so much for sparing your time. And this is the biggest lesson that we have कि हमें हर साल मतलब अगले साल की शुरुआत इसी तरह से करनी चाहिए। 31st December को पहले की थी, 21st December को अभी की है। And today we had the session in English because we had lots of people from South complaining that the language that we use is Hindi. So this time we specifically kind of obliged our members from the South to hold the session in English. Tomorrow's session will be purely in Hindi. So those of you who still have queries, who are comfortable with Hindi, you're more than welcome to join in. And thank you so much, Sahuji, and we look forward to having you tomorrow as well for the session.
प्रे कीजिए मैं टाइम पे पहुंच जाऊं दिल्ली। अर्ली 11 बजे है, मे बी I'll reach by 12:30.
Oops, otherwise we'll catch you on the way somewhere, Sahuji. Pleasure, but safe journeys to you, and see you tomorrow. Please take care. Thank you all.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Happy New Year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. See you tomorrow then.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.